I remember the sound of the courtroom doors creaking open. Everyone turned. Faces stiffened. Whispers stopped mid-sentence. And there I was. Standing. Walking. Alive. Composed. Very much not who they said I was. Just weeks earlier, they locked me away. Said I'd lost my mind. Said I was a danger to myself. Said I'd never step foot in the outside world again, let alone into a courtroom. They lied. I had been hidden, silenced, treated like a ghost before I was even gone. Doctors signed papers they never should have. People I trusted made decisions behind my back. My own family stood to inherit everything, if I just stayed quiet. But I didn't. I was supposed to be broken. Instead, I showed up with a new lawyer, a new diagnosis, and one powerful truth: I was never mentally gone. They just wanted me out of the way. That day, I wasn't fighting for money. I was fighting for my name. For my voice. For my right to be seen. And I wasn't leaving without it. I wasn't always someone they could shove into silence. I used to be the one everyone called when they needed something sorted, something remembered. I was the librarian in our small town for over 30 years, knew every face, every family, every whispered secret in the margins of returned books. My name is Pamela Silva. I'm 56. Widowed. After my husband Miguel died, something in me went quiet. Not broken, just quieter. Grief has its own language, and mine was silence, tea, and the occasional walk through the garden he built with his hands. I didn't have kids of my own, but Miguel did. A daughter, Clara, from his first marriage. We were never close. She always called me the replacement, even after 20 years. After Miguel's funeral, she stopped showing up completely. No calls. No messages. Just distance. But I managed. Alone, yes, but not helpless. I cooked, read, watered the roses, and kept to myself. I had a few good neighbors, like Victor, an old friend of Miguel's who helped with groceries when my arthritis flared up. He was kind, or so I thought. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I had peace. I had control. Until I inherited my aunt's estate. She'd left everything to me: her house, her savings, a small portfolio of stocks. It wasn't millions, but enough to change my retirement. Enough to attract the kind of attention I didn't want. That's when things started shifting. Strange phone calls. Mail I never saw. Victor growing oddly curious about my will. And Clara, after years of silence, suddenly asking how I was feeling, if I was managing alone, if I had someone taking care of things. Looking back now, I can see the trap being built around me. I just didn't know I was already standing in the middle of it. It started with something small. A phone call I didn't remember making. A woman from a clinic I'd never heard of called to confirm my wellness evaluation. I told her she must have the wrong person. She read my name and address back to me, perfectly. I brushed it off as a mix-up. But then it happened again. A week later, Victor dropped by with groceries, smiling like always. Said he'd found a great clinic that helps older folks manage health concerns before they become serious. Preventive care, he called it. He even offered to drive me there. I was skeptical, but I trusted him. After all, I'd known him longer than most people in my life. He was Miguel's best friend. He'd been there when I buried my husband. So I said yes. The clinic was cold. Not sterile, just cold. Emotionally empty. The woman behind the desk didn't smile when I walked in. They didn't ask for my insurance. They didn't ask what I was there for. Instead, they handed me a clipboard with papers already filled out. All I had to do was sign. I paused. Victor leaned in and whispered, "It's just routine. You'll be out in no time." A doctor called me in. Not a checkup. No stethoscope. No blood pressure cuff. Just questions. How often did I feel tired? Did I ever forget names or dates? How did I feel after losing Miguel? Did I feel useful? I answered honestly. Yes, I felt tired sometimes. Yes, I forgot things occasionally. No, I didn't feel particularly useful anymore. The doctor nodded, took notes, and thanked me. That was it. No one told me what the evaluation was for. I asked Victor, and he said not to worry, it was all just to make sure I had support. But something in me knew better. A week later, I got a letter. A formal document stating that a motion had been filed to assess my mental competence. Attached was a signed report from that very doctor, citing early signs of cognitive decline. And listed under the names of those requesting evaluation were 2 signatures, Victor and Clara. My hands went cold. I hadn't even known they spoke to each other. That's when it hit me. This wasn't concern. This wasn't help. This was a setup. What I thought was a checkup was the beginning of a plan to take my life out from under me, piece by piece. And I'd walked right into it. At first, I told myself it couldn't be what it looked like. I didn't want to believe that people I once let into my home, into my heart, could turn on me like that. But the signs kept coming. And they were getting harder to ignore. 3 days after that letter arrived, 2 people from Adult Protective Services knocked on my door. Polite. Smiling. But their eyes were scanning everything. They asked if I lived alone. If I cooked safely. If I felt overwhelmed or scared. They said they'd received a few concerns. I asked who raised those concerns. They just smiled and said, "We can't disclose that." I was still reeling when, a week later, a court notice arrived. There would be a hearing in 10 days. Victor and Clara had filed a petition to be named my co-guardians, citing signs of increasing confusion, physical decline, and lack of self-care. I stared at the paper until my vision blurred. They were trying to declare me incompetent. I called Clara. She picked up, but her voice was different, sharp, impatient. She said, "It's for your own good, Pamela. You've been struggling, and we just want what's best for you." Then she hung up before I could even respond. I felt something snap inside me. It wasn't sadness. It was disbelief. Victor showed up again, pretending everything was normal. He offered to help me prepare for the hearing, said the process would be easier if I didn't resist. Easier for who? I asked him how long he and Clara had been planning this. He didn't answer. Just gave me that same calm, rehearsed smile. That's when I locked the door behind him and didn't let him back in. I started going through my mail more carefully. Found bank alerts I never signed up for. Withdrawals I didn't authorize. New names added to my accounts. My world shrank overnight. I stopped answering the phone. Stopped trusting knocks at the door. Even walking to the mailbox felt like stepping into enemy territory. I wasn't paranoid. I was waking up. And with every passing day, the fear was replaced by something sharper. Focus. Determination. I didn't know how yet, but I knew I had to fight. Because if I didn't act soon, I wouldn't just lose my bank account or my house. I'd lose my right to exist on my own terms. And that was something I could never let them take. The day they took me, it was raining. Not a storm. Not dramatic. Just that kind of slow, steady drizzle that makes everything feel heavier. I was in my kitchen, making tea, when the knock came. 2 men. 1 woman. All strangers. They said they were from the court. Said I had been deemed a risk to myself. They had paperwork. Badges. Calm voices like they were delivering a package, not a verdict on my life. I told them there had to be a mistake. They told me I could bring a change of clothes. Within an hour, I was in a private psychiatric facility on the outskirts of town. No one told me how long I'd be there. No one explained what rights I still had. They took my phone, my bag, even my earrings. Said it was for my safety. The halls were silent except for the squeak of nurses' shoes. The food was cold. The lights never turned fully off. Time slowed down in that place. And the worst part? I couldn't prove I didn't belong there. Until Marina. She was a night nurse, probably in her early 30s. Soft eyes. Gentle voice. She noticed how I spoke clearly, how I remembered the names of every nurse and every patient. One night, she sat by my bed and whispered, "You're not like the others." I told her everything. How I got there. What they were trying to do. The next day, she slipped something under my meal tray. It was a copy of the guardianship petition. At the bottom were attached notes from the doctor who evaluated me weeks earlier. He claimed I was disoriented, emotionally unstable, and suffering from memory loss. I read it over and over, my hands shaking. They built their case around that one conversation. One visit. One lie. Marina leaned in and said, "If we can record you talking and get it to someone you trust, maybe there's still time." My mind flashed to Julian, a young volunteer who used to help out at the library. He once told me he was going to law school. I had no one else. With Marina's help, I used her phone to leave Julian a message. Told him where I was. Told him I needed someone to believe me. 2 days later, a voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Silva, you have a visitor." Julian. He walked in with a tape recorder, a notepad, and a fire in his eyes. And that's when everything changed. Because I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't alone. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I might actually get my life back. When you're locked away from the world, time doesn't pass, it drips. Hour by hour. Word by word. And every moment feels like you're being erased. But after Julian's visit, something shifted. He didn't just listen, he believed me. He took notes, asked the right questions, recorded everything I said. And when he left, he promised he'd be back. With help. With answers. I wanted to believe him. But I'd already learned what hope could do when it turned into disappointment. 2 days passed. Then 3. Still no word. Marina did her best to keep me updated, but she was risking her job just by talking to me. And the staff had started to notice. They moved me to a different room, no window, heavier doors. They said it was just protocol. But I knew better. They were tightening the noose. Then, on the 4th day, Marina snuck me a note. It was short. 2 sentences. Julian found a lawyer. Court date in 2 weeks. Stay strong. I cried. I hadn't cried since they took me. But that little scrap of paper felt like oxygen. I started preparing. Every conversation, every strange thing I saw in that place, I memorized it. I stayed sharp. Stayed quiet. I knew I had one shot. Meanwhile, the outside world was moving fast. Julian and the attorney, her name was Sofia Ramirez, began digging. And what they found was worse than anything I had imagined. Victor had already drained one of my savings accounts, using a document that gave him temporary access for medical expenses. Except those expenses didn't exist. Clara had submitted receipts for in-home care visits that never happened. Even filed for reimbursement through my health plan. My house had been appraised, listed for future sale, and the locks changed. All while I was being fed canned green beans in a facility that billed by the hour. I wasn't just being declared incompetent. I was being erased. One signature at a time. The hearing couldn't come soon enough. Sophia filed an emergency injunction to stop the sale of the house. Then she submitted my taped statement, along with a signed affidavit from Marina. That's when things got tense. Marina was fired without warning. Security escorted her out mid-shift. I found out through a different nurse, one who wouldn't meet my eyes when she spoke. Julian called the next day and told me to be ready. They were coming to get me out. When they arrived, I half expected it to be another trick. But then I saw Sophia. Dark blazer. Eyes sharp. And when she handed over the court order, even the staff looked rattled. I walked out with my head held high. But I didn't feel free. Not yet. Because the damage had been done. My reputation was smeared with whispers of instability. My accounts were frozen. My house was in limbo. But most of all, I had to face them. Victor. Clara. In court. And I wasn't just there to prove I was sane. I was there to make sure they couldn't do this to anyone else. Because now, I had something I didn't have before. A team. Proof. And my voice. And this time, I wasn't letting anyone silence it. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not the kind of cold you feel on your skin, but the kind that seeps into your chest when you know everything is about to change. I stood at the entrance, holding my breath. Behind me, Sophia adjusted the stack of files. Beside her, Julian gave me a quiet nod, like he was reminding me I belonged there. That I deserved to speak. At the front sat the judge, stone-faced, unreadable. And to the left, Clara. Her posture perfect. Her face blank. Next to her was Victor, whispering into his lawyer's ear like nothing he'd done could possibly come back to bite him. But it would. Sophia began. She laid out everything, the false evaluations, the suspicious withdrawals, the fake in-home care claims. She presented the medical reassessment from an independent doctor, one who spent 3 full hours with me and concluded I had full cognitive capacity. Then came Marina's affidavit, read aloud for the court. The room shifted. You could feel it. The discomfort. The realization. Then, it was my turn to speak. I told them what it was like to be locked away. To have my voice ignored, my choices stripped, my identity turned into paperwork passed between strangers. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just spoke the truth, clear and calm. And when I finished, I looked directly at Clara. She didn't look back. The judge recessed for what felt like forever. When he returned, the silence was unbearable. Then, the ruling. The petition for guardianship? Denied. All powers revoked. Full autonomy restored. Investigation into financial misconduct to proceed. Victor stood up mid-sentence and stormed out. Clara didn't move. And just like that, I had my life back. But freedom doesn't erase scars. When I walked back into my house, it didn't feel like home. The furniture was different. Rooms rearranged. Photos of Miguel had been taken down. It was like I had been erased and someone else tried to live in my place. I spent weeks putting things back the way I remembered. Not because I couldn't live with change. But because I needed to remind myself that I was still here. Still me. I had long talks with Sophia about pressing charges. She said we had a strong case. But I told her something I hadn't told anyone yet. I didn't just want justice. I wanted to prevent this from happening to someone else. So, I started speaking out. Small events at the library. Support groups for elder rights. One speech turned into an invitation to a podcast. Then a panel. Then a workshop at a state conference. People came up to me afterward in tears. Men and women who had seen the same quiet betrayals. Some were still fighting. Others had already lost everything. And every time, I reminded them. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not alone. What they did to me was more than a mistake. It was a system that let personal greed masquerade as protection. And that system counted on silence. But I'm not silent anymore. I got my freedom back. Now, I'm fighting for others to keep theirs. And if my voice can be a door someone else walks through, then all of it. The cold rooms, the fake concern, the courtroom. It was worth it. If there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. No one has the right to decide your worth or your mind without your voice being heard. I was almost erased, not because I was sick, but because people saw me as weak. Because they wanted control. But strength isn't just about muscle or loud words. It's about holding on to who you are, even when the world tries to write you off. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who refused to stay quiet. Maybe you know someone who's been sidelined, dismissed, or written off. Maybe it's a parent, a neighbor, a friend, or even you. Pay attention. Watch for the signs, the strange visits, the unexpected legal papers, the sudden loss of independence masked as help. This isn't just my fight. It's a fight for dignity. For respect. For justice. If you or someone you know is facing something similar, you're not alone. There are people, resources, and voices ready to stand with you. I urge you to speak up. Reach out. Find allies. Don't wait until it's too late. Because autonomy is not a gift to be given or taken away. It's a fundamental right. If my story moved you, please share it. Talk about it. Raise awareness. Together, we can shine a light on these hidden injustices. And if you want to learn more, or connect with organizations fighting elder abuse and guardianship fraud, the links are right here. Thank you for listening to my journey. Thank you for believing that every voice matters, even those they try to silence. Your support means more than words. Keep your eyes open. Keep your voice strong. And never let anyone tell you who you are.